Good morning, scholars. Today is Monday, so I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. Hope we got a little bit relaxed, but it's Monday, so it's time to go ahead and get into the mindset that we're going to be learning for 5 days, and then we'll be back to the weekend. So, we have been reading about presidents. So we've learned a lot about George Washington. We've learned some real things about him. We've read a story about him in the cherry tree, which was not true, but it had real people in it. So George Washington is a very real person. He's the first president of the United States, but the whole story about him chopping down the cherry tree was not real. All right, so today we are going to read about our third president of the United States. His name was Thomas Jefferson. You are learning to read and write. One day you will be able to pick up almost any book, open it, and start to read the words. How wonderful! Of course, someone wrote those words. People who write books are called authors. Author is another word for writer. So any book that you read, an author is the person that wrote it. Our third president, Thomas Jefferson, was a great reader because he wanted to learn about many different things. He owned more books than anyone else in the country. He once said, "I cannot live without books." How many of you feel that you cannot live without books? So imagine how boring the world would be if you couldn't read books. Wow, just think about it. Man, I don't want to think about that. Thomas Jefferson was also one of the best writers ever to live in the United States. He wrote words that are still famous all around the world, even though he wrote them a long time ago. So long ago before me, Miss Martini, your parents, Miss Schultz, before any one of us were born. He was writing all this stuff. Let me tell you about the most famous words he ever wrote. It was long past midnight. The guests of the inn wanted to sleep, but then could not. Thomas Jefferson was keeping them awake. They could hear him pacing in his room and talking to himself. Pacing is walking back and forth over and over again. Why do you think Jefferson was pacing? So sometimes you'll see when Mr. Spivey's in the classroom, he'll just be pacing kind of back and forth throughout the room while he's teaching, or Miss Martini if she's your teacher. The guest thought, "We will complain to the manager of the inn tomorrow. She must ask Mr. Jefferson to be quiet. At least he has stopped playing his fiddle." A fiddle is a violin. "He says it helps him think, but it keeps us awake." So when they say the word inn, it's like a hotel or a place that you sleep. Not the word inn like I-N, it's I-N-N, which is like a hotel that you might stay at when you're on vacation or something. Thomas Jefferson was a wonderful writer. He wrote about what he grew on his farm and how he grew it. He wrote about music and art. He wrote about the best way to design and construct houses and buildings. He wrote about animals and birds. He wrote about how to be a good friend. And he wrote about the Native Americans who had come to America long before the colonists. Colonists are people who live in a colony but are ruled by another country. He wrote about nearly everything because nearly everything interested him. At the time, however, Jefferson was trying to write a very important document or paper that is now famous in American history, the Declaration of Independence. So if you've ever heard that Declaration of Independence, a declaration is a statement or announcement. So a declaration is something that you say. So it's a statement or like an announcement. Independence is another word for freedom. So like right now, Mr. Spivey is independent because like he don't have to like answer to like his mom or dad or something, right? So independence means like freedom. Thomas Jefferson believed people should be free to make most decisions for themselves without a king or queen telling them what to do all the time. As he wrote the Declaration of Independence, he used an important word, liberty. You learned the word liberty in the first read aloud of this book. What does liberty mean? So think about what liberty means for a minute. So liberty basically just means freedom. In writing about liberty, Jefferson wanted to choose the best words so that people reading his writing would understand and agree with his ideas. Why was Thomas Jefferson writing this document? Like his friend George Washington, Jefferson thought it was time to start a new country and not be part of Great Britain any longer. Not everyone in the colonies felt this way, though. Jefferson, along with a few others, needed to give good, strong reasons to make big changes. Pardon me. They were hoping to persuade or urge most of the colonists to believe the same thing. Leaders from all over the 13 colonies met to talk about what to say. They chose 5 people to work on a document explaining the reason for a new nation. So the word persuade means to try to get someone to understand what you're saying and kind of buy into that idea. Like if, oh, you're wanting a new puppy, you could say, Mom, Dad, I want a new puppy, and here's why. I will feed it, I will take care of it, I will love it forever, and I will clean up any messes that it makes. So you're trying to get them to believe what you're saying, okay? One of the people working with Jefferson was John Adams. Jefferson and Adams were great friends. Although Adams was as different as he could be from Jefferson, John Adams lived in the North, Thomas Jefferson in the South. Adams was short and older. Jefferson was tall and younger. Adams loved to talk, especially in in front of crowds. Pardon me. Jefferson loved to read and write, but was shy in front of a crowd. However, they were alike in at least one thing. They agreed it was time to start a new nation. Because John Adams was older, Jefferson suggested, John, you should write the paper explaining our ideas. No, Thomas, Adams replied. I have angered so many people by arguing for a new country that some of them do not like me. They might not want to help us start a new country if they know I wrote the paper announcing it. Everyone likes you, though, so they will be more likely to help. Besides, you are a better writer than I am. You will find the best way to say everything. So this man right here is John Adams. He was, I believe, I'm wanting to say he was our second president. I would have to check on that. So on this particular night at the inn, Thomas Jefferson wanted to make this important document the very best thing he had ever written. In the Declaration of Independence, Jefferson wanted to explain to people that America could be different from any other nation in the world. He thought about every nation in the world. He thought that it could be better than any other. That is why he was walking up and down in his room, speaking aloud the words he was deciding to use: life, liberty, and what should come next. The pursuit of happiness, he told himself. At last, he began to write. We are almost done, friends. We have just a few more pages. On the 2nd of July, Jefferson finished his declaration and showed it to John Adams and the others working with him, who suggested a few small changes. So, with a little help from some others, Jefferson wrote his declaration. Jefferson's declaration said that every person should feel safe to live, to be free, and decide what to do in order to be happy. He wrote that everyone, not only kings or queens, had the right to do these things. Jefferson's declaration said that this was the reason to start a new nation, the United States of America. His friend John Adams smiled and said, "I told you, Thomas, you were the man to write it." 2 days after Jefferson finished the Declaration of Independence on the 4th of July, the other leaders voted to officially begin this new country that would be independent from Great Britain. That is why we call the 4th of July Independence Day. After the new nation was born, Americans read Thomas Jefferson's document again and again whenever they were deciding how the country should work. People in other countries said, "We want to be free too," and followed America's example by making changes in their countries. Jefferson's words about liberty changed people's lives all over the world. 13 years after Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, and after the colonists won the American Revolution against Great Britain, George Washington became the first president of the United States. Later, when Washington announced, I have been president long enough. Let someone else have a turn." Jefferson's friend John Adams became our second president. Here, the word turn means a chance to do something in a certain order. 4 years later, Thomas Jefferson became the third president of the United States, and many people believe he was one of the best presidents America has had. Whenever he was not sure about what to do, Jefferson read the words he himself had written. They always helped him make good decisions, and they still are helping us today. Do you recognize this statue? It's the Statue of Liberty. When America celebrated the 100th birthday of the Declaration of Independence, the government of France gave the nation the Statue of Liberty as a gift for the nation for America's birthday. France wanted to show respect. So respect is kind of like being kind and, showing gratitude towards someone. Respect America's love of freedom and liberty, which Thomas Jefferson wrote about so beautifully in the Declaration of Independence. This statue still stands in New York Harbor, welcoming thousands of visitors each year. So whenever you see this famous statue, remember how hard Thomas Jefferson worked to declare that every person should have liberty or be free. All right, friends, I know that was a long story, but we learned some new vocab, and we learned about our second president, John Adams, and we learned about our third president, Thomas Jefferson. Think about it now. Today, we just inaugurated our 46th president of the United States. So, it kind of fits perfectly into what we are covering right now, just because there's been so much talk about presidents and stuff in the news that parents might have been watching. So it's just giving us a little bit more information about our nation's history. So, Friends, I hope you guys enjoyed our video, and I will see you tomorrow. Goodbye, friends.